In this session, we are going to calculate variances for materials, material cost variances. So before we look into the material variances, variance is the difference between a planned, budgeted or standard cost and the actual cost incurred. So when we compare the standard cost with the actual cost, the difference is called as variance. So it's not only for the cost, the same comparison we can use for the revenues or sales as well. Okay, so variance analysis. In the variance analysis, we analyze differences between actual and budgeted or standard figures. Sometimes we end up with favorable variances when actual costs are or actual results are better than expected. So actual results means actual costs are lower than expected or actual revenues are more than expected. Sometimes management doesn't perform that well and they end up with adverse variances, reflecting that actual results were worse than expected. Variances are calculated in total using flexible budgets and then broken down further. Flexible budgets mean is simply this. This is very important for variance analysis. Please remember, it's not only for materials, but for the labor cost, for the overheads, variable, fixed overheads as well. The reason being is this. Standard cost card is prepared for 1 unit of product, 1 unit, whereas the actual results achieved are not for 1 unit. You might have produced 1000 units, you might have actually produced 2000 units. So the actual costs you will see would be for multiple and many units produced. So what happens before we actually compare the standard results with the actual results? We flex the standard results. So if there is standard quantity given for 1 unit, we multiply that by the actual output produced to get the standard quantity for actual output. That is very important to remember. So total material variance, as we discussed before, will be divided into material price variance and material usage variance. Material usage variance, you can also call it materials quantity variance. So quantity or usage are the same thing. Okay. Now here is the pro forma or key pro forma for the material variances, which is divided into 3 lines. Line number 1 is standard quantity times by standard price. Then last line is actual quantity times by actual price. So the first of all, we have standards in form of SQ, SP. And the last line is when we receive the actual results, actual quantity at actual price. And then from the left hand side of the first line, we change standard quantity to the actual quantity without touching the standard price, and we develop this middle line. Okay, you can see here this one. So from the left hand side, if we look at that, standard quantity will be compared with actual quantity, giving us the usage variance. And from the right hand side, you can see standard price will be compared with the actual price, giving us the price variance. So these are abbreviations, but I can show you a bit more detailed version as well. But again, remember what I said before. Standard quantity must be for the actual output. So standard quantity times standard price, actual quantity times standard price, the difference is called as usage variance. Did you notice that standard prices are constant? So we are not comparing price with the price. For the quantity or usage variance, we are comparing the left hand side part of the variance, which is standard quantity and actual quantity. So as I mentioned earlier on, standard quantity equals to standard quantity per unit into actual units. Then price variance pro forma. So the second line, if I take you back, and you see the second line was actual quantity into standard price. We copy and paste this again, And then the last line is actual quantity times actual price. And we end up with the price variance. So we can have a quick look at an example and see how to calculate the direct material cost variances. So standard costs are 5 kilograms at $8 per kilo. Now what does it mean? This is simply representing direct materials used in one unit or to be used in one unit. Whereas if you look at the actual results are given as actual output of 2000 units produced, and for these 2000 units, materials purchased and used were 8000 kilos costing $63,000. Calculate all possible variances. Okay, so here we go. First of all, the pro forma standard quantity, standard price, actual quantity, standard price, and actual quantity, actual price. Whereas standard quantity is standard kilogram per unit into actual units. So standard quantity is 5 kilograms per unit and we produce 2000 units. So which gives us the 10,000 kilos. So here we insert it times by the price and we get $80,000. Then actual quantity was given in the exercise. If you fancy, you can have a look at one more time. 8,000 kilograms multiplied by standard price, because we are not comparing the price here, and we get 64,000. So 80,000 minus 64,000 is the material usage variance, $16,000, and it is positive on the calculator. 80 minus 64 is positive $16,000, giving us favorable. And it's not just the game of being positive or negative. Can you see here that standard quantity to make 2000 units was 10,000 kilograms, whereas the actual quantity used was only 8,000 kilograms. So can you see saving of direct materials in this production process? We should have used 10,000 kilos. We budgeted 10,000, but actually we used only 8,000 kilos, saving the direct material quantity, and therefore it is favorable. Is that okay? Right. Then the material price variance, we can have a quick look. So pro forma actual quantity standard price minus actual quantity actual price. So actual quantity standard price, you can see I'm copying and pasting 64,000. And ACCA was given, which was given here. If I go back to my question, 63,000. So here is, I think, my little typo. Here it should be 60. Here I can change it to 65,000 actually. Typo was here in the question. So now it makes perfect sense. It's fine. My apologies. Okay. So coming back, 64 minus 65, 1000 negative 1000 is the adverse. But why is it adverse? Well, simply the idea is the actual price paid was little bit more than the standard price. Okay, if you fancy, I can take you back to the question. Here is my slides for the question. Now actual price, okay, sorry, standard price was $8 per kilo. And what do you think, what was the actual price paid? Well, actual price paid is here. They purchased and used 8,000 kilos costing $65,000. So if you divide $65,000, $65,000 over 8,000 kilograms, you actually get 8.125. So instead of paying $8 per kilo, they paid little more than that. And that's why the variance is coming to adverse. Right? Here we go, adverse variance. So now we can look at the total variance, which we can combine the usage and price. So if we combine the usage and price, we get the total material variance. Thank you.